Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. It's Election Day in California. Voters have the option to vote the governor out or keep him for the remainder of his term. Doctors and nurses in New York State don't have to get the COVID-19 vaccine for now. A federal judge is temporarily blocking the state's vaccine mandate for healthcare workers. New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is no stranger to controversy, and the latest one comes after she wore a dress stating "Tax the Rich" to a gala. We bring you her defense and reactions from critics. Wikipedia is banning a group of top Chinese editors. The users reportedly threatened to dox and report Hong Kong users over political disagreements. Wikipedia says it confirmed that some users have been physically harmed because of this. And the Texas coast is recovering after a hurricane made landfall. It left more than 400,000 homes and businesses without power. Today, California voters across the state are deciding whether to keep Governor Gavin Newsom or choose another candidate. Here's NTD's Eileen Ang with more.
Here at a voting center in Santa Clara, people are casting their votes on Election Day. Let's hear what they have to say.
We need some good leadership, some that are not corrupt and beholden to special interests such as unions, and mainly the unions, but unions and that are beholden to the people and to businesses.
I don't believe in this recall election, so I support. I don't want any changes. I'm happy right now, and he's taking good care of our COVID in California, and we're all happy.
It needs to be done. I think we need to have someone that abides by the rules a little bit better and uses the system how it's built on being able to get a balanced outcome of what needs to be done.
Adding my voice to the whole to the public consensus, making sure that my opinion is well received, I suppose.
I'm Jackie Mulinax, and I'm here at one of the many voting centers open today in California. It's a very big week for California as we move further into this recall election. And it seems, whether for it or against it, it's a hot topic of conversation pretty much anywhere you go. Now, I've heard a lot of names today talking with people such as, front-running candidates like Kevin Kiley or Larry Elder. But I've also spoken with a few people who say they'd like to see Newsom continue. He's done his job and he deserves to finish out his term.
I want him to work more towards climate change and doing things about the forest and such and wildfires. But I think we cannot lose a Democratic voice, because I don't want us to be another Texas. I don't want us to be another Florida. I want women to have their own choice, to make up their own minds about their bodies.
I'm excited that there's a recall in motion. I think Gavin Newsom has not been good for our state. I feel like he is hypocritical, and I'm excited that a lot of other Californians feel the same way.
There are also mixed responses in Southern California.
Yeah, I voted because I wanted to stop this Republican recall, which I consider being completely illegitimate. The election is like a year away, and now they've wasted about $20 million of taxpayers' money.
I think it's a good way to hold politicians accountable, that they don't have ultimate power to do whatever they want, and that people, just because you're in office doesn't mean that you're not accountable anymore.
We need to stay in democracy and in freedom to vote and to express our opinions as citizens.
Polls close at 8 p.m. It can take a few days for the results to be announced as the state waits for mail-in ballots to be counted. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
Now, there is precedent for today's recall vote. 18 years ago, discontented Californians voted to replace their governor midterm. NTD's David Lamb has the story.
Governor Gavin Newsom faces criticism over the way he handled the COVID pandemic, crime, and more. This is the second recall election in the state's history. The first was in 2003 when Arnold Schwarzenegger replaced incumbent Gray Davis. In an interview with CNN, Schwarzenegger draws similarities between this year's recall to that of 2003.
The atmosphere is exactly the same when I ran. It's the same kind of things like where the people talk about blackouts, where people are not happy with education, where people are not happy with what's going on with the inequality in the state.
Californians blame Davis for the electricity crisis and rolling blackouts, among other issues, which led to his recall. Throughout the recall process, Davis characterized the effort as a partisan mischief by a handful of right-wing politicians. Today, Governor Newsom uses a similar message, characterizing the 2021 recall as a Republican recall. After nearly 3 months of campaigning, Schwarzenegger was declared the new governor on election night. By 10 p.m. local time, Davis conceded,
"Thank you so much for being here tonight,"
that he had lost the election. NTD talked to Randy Economy, a political consultant who personally knew Davis.
And I used to tell Gray all the time when we'd run into each other at the supermarket, you better pay attention to this recall because it's a real thing. And he laughed at me. And everybody within the Democratic Party laughed at me and says, oh, you can't take those crazy people serious. You can't take Arnold Schwarzenegger serious.
Economy told NTD he used to be part of the Democratic Party.
Well, on election night, I sat literally 5 feet from Gray Davis with tears rolling down his face and his wife's face, and everybody in that room had looked like they had just, been taken to the worst funeral of their lives.
The top two replacements were Lieutenant Governor Cruz Bustamante and Schwarzenegger. Bustamante garnered nearly 32% of votes, while Schwarzenegger won over 48% of votes. He was later dubbed the name Governator, a reference to the actor's Hollywood films. Today, Californians are voting whether or not to recall Governor Newsom. If the recall is successful, a new governor will be instated on October 22nd and finish the remainder of his term. Otherwise, Newsom will continue in his role until January 22nd, 2023. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
And NTD is offering live coverage of the recall vote beginning at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. That's 7:30 Mountain Time, 8:30 Central, and 9:30 Eastern. You can watch the live broadcast on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/NTDTV. And the COVID-19 vaccine is no longer mandatory for healthcare workers in New York State, at least for now. A federal judge is blocking the state's vaccine mandate.
U.S. District Court Judge David Hurd granted a temporary restraining order in a lawsuit against New York Governor Kathy Hochul. That means the state's vaccine mandate is suspended, but the lawsuit is still ongoing. 17 healthcare workers filed the lawsuit. They argue that the vaccine mandate would nullify protections for sincere religious beliefs. Their religious beliefs compel them to refuse vaccines that use aborted fetus cell lines in testing, development, or production. The plaintiff's attorney Christopher Ferreira said in a statement, "Never in the history of New York State, never in the history of the world, has a government sought to forcibly impose mass vaccination on an entire class of people under threat of immediate personal and professional destruction." Then New York Governor Andrew Cuomo imposed the mandate in August, and at least one hospital is having a staffing crisis because of it. Lewis County General Hospital in upstate New York said last week they won't be able to deliver babies anymore. That's because 6 workers in its maternity ward resigned over the vaccine mandate.
The White House's COVID-19 action plan doesn't mention natural immunity, a well-researched scientific factor that other countries do consider in their policymaking. Florida's governor is bringing a lot of attention to this omission in U.S. policy. He's calling vaccine mandates that overlook natural immunity scientifically flawed. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
Governor Ron DeSantis says he'll slap heavy fines on local governments that lay down COVID-19 vaccine mandates.
If a government agency in the state of Florida forces a vaccine as a condition to employment, that violates Florida law.
He noted that mandates are even being imposed on Floridians who've already recovered from the virus. Multiple scientific studies demonstrate that those who recover have strong and long-lasting immunities. So the governor considers these mandates to be scientifically flawed and damaging because they hurt people like Maria Bernard, who refuses to get vaccinated.
My husband and I have spent weeks trying to figure out a logical reason for this mandate.
Bernard's been an Orange County firefighter for 17 years and recovered from COVID alongside her husband.
No one should be forced to have to choose between their beliefs and their bodily autonomy or their job, and risk losing everything that they ever worked for in life to be left with no way to survive. If the reasoning behind this mandate is to help employees and protect employees, then why are we being forced into a fate that will be far worse than contracting and recovering from COVID?
A study from Israel shows that natural immunities provided far better protection against the Delta variant than 2 doses of the Pfizer vaccine. The CDC encourages Americans to get vaccinated, but makes little to no mention of natural immunity publicly. The agency does, however, state on its website that they don't know how long the post-COVID protection lasts. They haven't gotten back to us for comment. In the meantime, a lot of businesses and governments, including the Biden administration, aren't considering natural immunity in their policies.
The trouble with the Biden administration is if you don't take the vaccine, there's not even a medical exemption.
Republican Congressman Warren Davidson is referring to President Biden's COVID-19 action plan. If implemented, tens of millions of employees in the private sector would be required to get vaccinated.
Unique in the United States is we don't recognize natural immunity. The idea that, people do, and it's estimated over 120 million people in the United States have already had COVID-19 and recovered. And study after study keeps showing that those people actually have a higher level of immunity to variants and, getting the virus again or transmitting it to other people than people who are taking the vaccine. So if you wanted an honest approach, you would count people that have had the virus and recovered as fully vaccinated.
Davidson has proposed a bill to ban vaccine passports. He says the bill would also require natural immunity to be recognized in cases where a person must be immunized to work. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
And now even some zoo animals have to get vaccinated. The Maryland Zoo announced they will vaccinate certain animals susceptible to COVID-19, including river otters, chimpanzees, and cat species. But the zoo also says they haven't detected any cases of COVID-19 in the animals. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was seen sporting a white dress with the words "Tax the Rich" on it. That was at this year's fundraising event called the Met Gala at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The New York Congresswoman defended her decision after taking heavy criticism over her controversial wardrobe. Here's NTD's Kevin Hogan with more.
Hypocrisy accusations surrounded Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez after her appearance at the Met Gala on Monday. She wore a white dress that had the words "Tax the Rich" written on it in red letters. Critics accused her of being two-faced for wearing the dress while hobnobbing with celebrities and extremely wealthy guests at the gala, where tickets are reportedly priced at $35,000 apiece. The self-described socialist took to Instagram to defend the dress, saying the medium is the message, and time is now for childcare, healthcare, and climate action for all. The president of Barstool Sports, Dave Portnoy, responded, "Tax the rich, but first I'm going to go have the time of my life partying with them at the most extravagant, over-the-top party of the year that is essentially a celebration of richness." AOC sought to disrupt criticism beforehand by saying that NYC elected officials are regularly invited to the Met. Her ticket was allegedly a gift. AOC claims that taxing the rich will help the poor by decreasing wealth inequality and raise a lot of revenue without hurting the economy. Yet according to economist Fred Foldberry, increasing the marginal tax rate on the rich will hurt all of society, including the poor. That's because he says the higher taxes will result in less production, less investment, and less entrepreneurship. The dress and its message were designed to provoke debate, and the New York Congresswoman certainly succeeded in achieving that objective. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
In a rare move, Wikipedia is banning 7 Chinese editors and revoking administration access for 12 others. That's after the users reportedly threatened their Hong Kong peers over political differences. Here's more.
The Wikimedia Foundation, which owns and operates Wikipedia, announced Monday that they permanently banned 7 top Chinese users from accessing the website globally. They also revoked administrator access for 12 others. The users all belong to a group called Wikimedians of Mainland China, which the Wikimedia Foundation doesn't officially recognize. Hong Kong media HKFP reported in July that the mainland Chinese users threatened to dox and report Hong Kong users to the city's national security police for alleged political disagreements. Under Hong Kong's national security law, the government has broad powers to punish dissidents and critics. The Wikimedia Foundation's Vice President of Community Resilience and Sustainability, Maggie Dennis, said in a statement, "This case is unprecedented in scope and nature. We know that some users have been physically harmed as a result. With this confirmed, we have no choice but to act swiftly and appropriately in response." According to HKFP, the mainland Chinese and Hong Kong editors have been at war with each other over Wikipedia entries on Hong Kong political events. The so-called editing wars escalated during the city's 2019 pro-democracy protests. The mainland editors would cite Chinese state media, while the Hong Kong editors would cite independent Hong Kong media to describe the events. The Wikimedia statement goes on to say, "The situation we are dealing with today has shown me how much we need as a movement to grapple with the hard questions of how we remain open to editing by anyone anywhere while ensuring that individuals who take us up on that offer are not harmed by those who want to silence them." Since 2012, Wikipedia has banned only 86 other users.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken appeared before Congress today for his second day of questioning about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee asked tough questions on the evacuation operation. NTD's Jason Perry has the details.
We've all seen this.
Senator Risch started off the hearing by asking Blinken whether anyone has the power to mute President Biden while he's speaking.
That somebody has the ability to push the button and cut off his sound and stop him from speaking. Who is that person?
There is no such person. Again, the president speaks for himself.
Senator Rand Paul wanted to know whether the drone strike the U.S. military claimed killed an ISIS-K terrorist could have been a deadly mistake.
The guy the Biden administration droned, was he an aid worker or an ISIS-K operative?
The administration is, of course, reviewing that strike, and I'm sure that a full assessment will be forthcoming.
So you don't know if it was an aid worker or an ISIS-K operative?
I can't speak to that, and I can't speak to that in this setting in any event.
Senator Ron Johnson pressed Blinken for answers on why billions of dollars worth of U.S. weapons were left behind if the U.S. intelligence said Afghan security forces could collapse by the end of the year.
Did that discussion ever come up in terms of maybe that wouldn't be a good idea, leaving all that equipment behind as we bug out of Afghanistan?
That assessment came in July. Much of the equipment, and again, I'll defer to my colleagues at the Pentagon, who are more expert in this than I am. Much of that equipment was made inoperable.
Senator Cruz accused the Biden administration of being naive to Islamic extremism.
You keep saying things like the steps the Taliban needs to take to be welcomed into the community of civilized nations. Mr. Secretary, they don't want to be welcomed into the community of civilized nations. They are terrorists who want to murder us.
During the hearing, Republican and Democratic senators expressed frustration that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin did not testify at the hearing. Austin is set to testify before the Armed Services Committee later this month. Jason Perry, NTD News.
The southern coast of the U.S. is battling the next storm. Tropical storm Nicholas hit the Texas coast as a hurricane. It dumped more than a foot of rain along the same area swamped by Hurricane Harvey in 2017.
The Category 1 hurricane made landfall near Houston early Tuesday and was downgraded to a tropical storm after destroying a gas station and flooding streets. It's also drenching storm-battered Louisiana and might bring life-threatening flash floods across the Deep South.
One of the things that could exacerbate the threat of flooding are all the ditches and catch basins and storm drains and so forth, all these drainage systems that have debris from previous storms.
Galveston, Texas has seen nearly 14 inches of rain so far. The flood-prone Houston area has received more than 6 inches of rain. More than 400,000 homes and businesses were without power in Texas on Tuesday morning. The rain, however, was a fraction of what fell during Harvey. The two storms, however, do have similarities.
The big problem is going to be rain and flooding. That's because Nicholas is moving slowly, extremely slowly. The reason why Harvey was such a disaster in 2017 was that It's stalled over Houston for 3 days.
Nicholas is expected to move eastwards and bring bands of heavy rain over the next couple of days in Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, but should weaken further and become a depression by Wednesday.
Up next, an NYPD officer in a dangerous situation. The city's hostage negotiation team had to step in to free the officer. And we take a look inside a New York City church that hosts a massive soup kitchen. The whole operation is said to be the second largest in the country, providing food to the poor since 1982. That and more in just a moment on NTD News. A New York City police officer is in the hospital after she was held hostage in Queens today. NTD's Arian Pazdar is at the scene of the incident.
We're here at the outskirts of New York City, very close to JFK Airport. An NYPD officer was held hostage in her own home by her husband. Now, he reportedly opened fire at police who tried entering the home. In the end, the captive officer had to jump out of the window to escape. The officer broke her foot because of the jump, but wasn't injured in any other way. The suspect got shot in the arm after the officer had escaped. Later, he engaged in dialogue with the police, who was outside the house. During that time, a relative of the suspect stormed the scene, as you can see here on footage posted on the Citizen app.
While in dialogue with the male, a relative of the suspect arrived at the scene. The relative worked with the officers from our hostage negotiation team. The suspect voluntarily came to the door and was placed under arrest.
According to reports, the suspect thought his wife is having an affair, which is why he took her service weapon and threatened her with it. Arian Pazdar, NTD News, New York.
A church in New York City is said to be the second largest soup kitchen in the country. NTD's Jason Perry had an exclusive interview with a meal outreach specialist to see what it's like delivering food to those in need.
We are here right outside of Holy Apostles Church in New York City, and they're said to have the second largest soup kitchen in the country. Their soup kitchen started in 1982, and they said they've served over 10 million meals so far. We spoke with Derek, who works for the church in their meal outreach program.
So what I do is I make breakfast as well as lunch, in the morning for the people out there in the streets. You might find me in the park, you might find me in Penn Station, you might find me anywhere there's somebody laying on the floor down the subway or just in the streets walking. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be homeless to eat.
Derek delivers about 200 meals per day, and he can relate to a lot of the people he delivers the food to.
Just because you're homeless, I'm not gonna look down at you because I've been there, that was me. I wasn't like homeless, like living on the streets. I was homeless living in other people's houses, but I was homeless.
Derek's day starts at 3 a.m., and he goes to the church to prepare breakfast for that day. Then he loads up his cart and delivers the meals to those in need.
When they see me in the wagon, they call me, and I'm there. I've been here for a while, and it's been very rewarding. It could be hectic. It could be, there are times I'm dealing with people who could be, and they feeling sometimes, but, I just learned to keep a very positive, open mind and just do what I have to do. And that's feed the people that's out there that need something to eat.
So why does he do it?
I love what I do. Why not? Why not? As long as if it's God's work and this is what I'm called to do, then yes, so be it.
Many of the people who visit here say it gives them hope. If anyone would like to donate to this particular soup kitchen, visit holyapostlesnyc.org. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
Another billionaire entrepreneur is set to launch into space this week. The mission is set to make history as the first all-civilian crew to be launched into Earth's orbit. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
Jared Isaacman, founder and CEO of Shift4 Payments, will lead 3 fellow space newbies on a trip expected to last 3 days. The crew will launch into orbit aboard a SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule. The crew vehicle is set for blastoff from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. A 24-hour targeted launch window opens at 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday.
I think it's exciting. I think they need to get the safety numbers in I would think better than 1 in 100 for this to go beyond a few brave people.
Dubbed Inspiration 4, the orbital mission will raise awareness and support for one of Isaacman's favorite causes, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. He has personally pledged $100 million to the organization, but a successful mission would also help usher in a new era of commercial space tourism.
There is a certain amount of frivolousness and ego in it, but I also believe that we have moved in our understanding of science and our capability in technologies because people have taken these kind of extraordinary risks, right? I mean, that is the human endeavor to push the limits.
Inspiration 4 officials stress that the mission is more than a thrill. Once in orbit, the crew will perform medical experiments.
I think if they can show this as improving broadly the technological capability for our society, maybe because it improves cargo flights, maybe because it improves scientific experimentation in space.
The SpaceX flight will carry its 4 passengers where no all-civilian crew has gone before, into Earth's orbit. There, they will circle the globe once every 90 minutes at more than 17,000 miles per hour, or roughly 22 times the speed of sound. The target altitude is 360 miles high, beyond the orbits of the International Space Station and the Hubble Space Telescope. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Google has just barred ads from pro-life organization Live Action. This is after a report was published accusing the group of spreading medical misinformation. But Live Action is calling this a coordinated pro-abortion attack and claims the removal of their ads is political. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Pro-life group Live Action says Google disapproved all of its abortion pill reversal ads after running them for over 4 months. The group says the ads were aimed to inform women of the possibility of reversing the abortion pill process, which involves treatment with a pregnancy hormone called progesterone. The promotion of this animation video of human development in the womb was also blocked. The ads were all shut down, citing Google's unreliable claims policy. This comes after the Center for Countering Digital Hate released a report accusing Facebook and Google of endangering women for profit by selling ad space promoting the abortion pill reversal, which the report calls a dangerous and unproven procedure. Google told the Daily Beast it removed the ads after reviewing a copy of the report provided by the outlet. But Lila Rose, the founder of Live Action, is calling Google's move a political double standard because she says the tech giant is still permitting ads promoting the abortion pill, which, according to the FDA, has killed at least 24 women and hospitalized over 1,000. Rose says it's also responsible for ending the lives of millions of babies. She's calling on Google to fairly apply its own policies and immediately restore pro-life ads. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Coming up, China's Navy encroaches on a U.S. exclusive economic zone near Alaska. Chinese state-run media says it's a countermeasure against the U.S. French healthcare workers are protesting against the vaccine mandate. Those who haven't gotten the shot could be fired starting tomorrow. More in just a moment here on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes. Make a plan today.
Navigating a world of economic madness, you need to have the right guide. What do today's decisions mean for your tomorrow? We ask why. What's the alternative? Uncover the deeper reasons and the hidden influences, and highlight the real opportunities for profit. At NTD Business, we connect the dots for you. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Four Chinese warships, including a Chinese destroyer, have sailed into the U.S.'s exclusive economic zone. Chinese state-run media says this is a warning to the U.S. about China's naval capabilities. NTD's Don Ma has more.
China looks to be sending a strong message to the U.S. about its maritime prowess. In a display of naval power, as per Chinese state-run media The Global Times, 4 advanced Chinese warships, including a destroyer, conducted naval operations in the U.S.'s exclusive economic zone near Alaska late last month. A country's exclusive economic zone is considered international waters. It's not part of a nation's territory, but a state does have the exclusive right to marine resources within the area. The Chinese ships included a guided missile destroyer, a guided missile cruiser, a general intelligence vessel, and an auxiliary vessel. The ships were spotted near Alaska's Aleutian Islands by 2 Legend-class U.S. Coast Guard ships. Pictures released by the Coast Guard showed the U.S. ships shadowing the Chinese ships. A statement by the Coast Guard on Monday says the Chinese vessels were conducting military and surveillance operations during their deployment to the Bering Sea and North Pacific Ocean. It looks like the Chinese ships didn't show any signs of aggression. The Coast Guard said that while the ships were within the U.S. exclusive economic zone, they followed international laws and norms and at no point entered U.S. territorial waters. According to Chinese state-run newspaper The Global Times, the Chinese warships near Alaska demonstrated the Chinese Navy's far-reaching capabilities. It also says the ship's presence at the U.S.'s doorstep is a sign of defiance against what the paper calls U.S. actions of hegemony. Don Ma, NTD News.
China is reportedly clearing landmines along its border with Burma, also known as Myanmar. The regime recently planted the explosives there to prevent people from crossing over without permission, and they also built barbed wire fences. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
Chinese authorities are reportedly clearing landmines on the border between China and Burma, also called Myanmar. The Chinese regime had built a 1,000-mile-long barbed wire fence along the border between southwestern China's Yunnan province and Burma to block civilians from crossing the border without permission. Later, it added landmines along the border. A picture online appears to show a Burmese local government issued notice last Thursday, stating that the Chinese regime had planted landmines along the border. The notice says after negotiations, the Chinese regime agreed to remove the landmines within 2 months. The notice reminds civilians not to go to the demining area and not to panic when they hear landmines exploding. A hotel attendant in a Chinese town at the border on Monday confirmed to Radio Free Asia that Chinese military personnel were clearing landmines. Landmines are weapons of war. An international convention on landmines says these weapons must not be used during peacetime. An insider told Radio Free Asia the Chinese regime believed that the recent CCP virus or coronavirus emerging in the border area had come from Burma, and that the landmines were a tool to stop people crossing over from Burma with the virus. He said it was also an attempt to prevent Chinese people from coming into contact with religious groups from Burma.
Footage shows Border Force carrying out exercises in the English Channel where jet skis surround a small boat containing people and tow it away. It's thought to be training exercises on how to deal with dinghies containing migrants. So far this year, over 14,000 people have crossed the channel in small boats. NTD's Joey Duguid has the details.
In exercises off the coast of Dover,
Border Force jet skis maneuver around a dinghy while larger vessels are stationed nearby. In another exercise, a dinghy with passengers is surrounded and turned back. The Home Office doesn't comment on the exercises, but a department spokeswoman says they are testing a range of safe and legal options for stopping small boats. On Monday, over 30 migrants were rescued off the English coast after crossing from France. Among the migrants are women and children. One woman is tended to by Border Force health officials after appearing unwell. According to the Press Association, between September the 4th and the 10th, nearly 2,000 migrants arrived in the UK by crossing the Channel. This sets a new record for any 7-day period in this year. At least 14,400 people have crossed to the UK on small boats this year. Early on Monday morning, 2 migrants were stopped in a small dinghy off the coast of northern France by police.
I come from Ethiopia. I tried to go to UK since a long time. And yesterday we would try with together with my friend and too much people. Then the policeman come and take boat and motor, everything.
Last week, the Home Office said that UK Border Force could intercept boats and send them back to French waters. This plan is controversial. Opposition politicians and refugee groups say turning back boats in the Channel would be impractical, dangerous and illegal. The French Interior Minister says France will not accept such practices and they breach maritime laws. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
In France, healthcare workers who haven't received the vaccine will be dismissed starting tomorrow. This might seriously affect hospitals, which already lack manpower. NTD's David Vives has the story.
Healthcare workers took part in several demonstrations across France on Tuesday. Protesters spoke out against the vaccine mandate. From September 15th, healthcare workers who refuse to be vaccinated will be dismissed. Dozens gathered outside the French Health Ministry in Paris. According to trade union spokesperson Yann Le Baron, the non-vaccinated are now the black sheep in hospitals.
We say yes to the vaccine, yes to the science, but we're totally against this form of blackmail, saying we will lose our jobs if we don't comply with the government.
He says the government is trying to lay the blame on non-vaccinated staff.
We are being pushed to believe that unvaccinated people are so dangerous to others that they deserve to lose their jobs.
Some healthcare workers said on social media that they will take days off, hoping for a reversal of the decision.
Non-vaccinated staff have been summoned by administrators at their hospitals. Some received text messages directly from their bosses, which is illegal, and some employees could not bear it, so they took weeks off.
Medical Secretary Vanessa Perotti, who works just outside of Paris at a public hospital, joined the protest outside the French Health Ministry to show her opposition to the vaccine. She said she was ready to be suspended from her hospital job and has already sent her resume to potential employers.
I've sent my CV around. I'll wait for a job offer and I'll show my current employers my contract and I'll say goodbye.
According to the health minister, around 90% of all healthcare workers have received at least one dose of the vaccine. Non-vaccinated healthcare workers only make up a small minority, but even if between 5 to 10% of healthcare workers are dismissed, it could create a big issue for the French healthcare system, which according to the union already faces a shortage of manpower. David Vives, NTD News.
Coming up, scientists in France are working hard to prove that large-scale clean energy through nuclear fusion is possible. A massive magnet could bring them one step closer. And a megapod of humpback whales enjoys the water off the coast of Australia. We take a look at the stunning footage after the break.
Hi folks, Joe Namath here with a new message about your Medicare benefits. You may be entitled to transportation, meals, and expanded coverage for dental work that includes extractions, fillings, and dentures, all at no additional cost. Plus, depending on your zip code, you may be entitled to the Medicare benefit that adds money to your Social Security check every single month. Call and get everything you deserve. Call now. It's free.
I'm on a fixed income, so I called to get money added to my Social Security check. They helped me so much.
I called to save money on copays, get prescriptions, transportation, and my dental work covered. I couldn't believe I was spending money I don't have to spend.
Millions of people have trusted the Medicare Coverage Helpline, and you can too. Call now. It's free.
Call 1-800-764-1930. That's 1-800-764-1930 now.
Scientists at the largest fusion reactor in the world in southern France are working hard to prove that large-scale clean energy through nuclear fusion is possible. Now they've come one step closer. NTD's Eddie Aitken explains.
Last week, part of a massive magnet arrived in the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, or ITER, in southern France. Its manufacturer says the 150-ton magnet is so powerful it can lift an aircraft carrier. ITER is the largest fusion reactor in the world. For the scientists here, the magnet brings them one crucial step closer to proving that it's possible to generate large-scale clean energy through nuclear fusion. Unlike existing fission reactors that produce radioactive waste, proponents of fusion say it offers a clean and virtually limitless supply of energy. Rather than splitting atoms, fusion mimics a process that occurs naturally in our Sun to meld two hydrogen atoms together and produce a helium atom, as well as a whole load of energy. Basically, it's a way of creating energy in the same way as the Sun.
If we're trying to do it back on the surface of the Earth, we don't have the pressure there. There's not the mass of the sun. So instead of that, we have to heat the atoms up very, very hot, so that when they're hot, they move very quickly, and when they hit each other, that sticks. They stick together, and you get the heat out. You call that nuclear heat. And that releases the fusion energy. Then you have to collect that with some form of what we call a blanket. It's a way of absorbing the energy. It makes steam, and then you can generate electricity.
Scientists here believe if they can establish proof by just doing it once, the technology will snowball. The International ITER project began in the 1980s, so the question is when. ITER spokesman Leban Koblenz argues the timescales can be shortened if the funds are there to allow the scientists to adopt novel technologies quickly. Strides made in medical technologies during the pandemic have proven that. Scientists say ITER is now 75% complete. They aim to fire up the reactor by early 2026. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
35 years after the world's worst nuclear disaster, a new type of tourism for Chernobyl's exclusion zone. Cyclists are heading to the Ukrainian city for an active holiday with scenic routes. Here's NTD's Kost Jimenez with the story.
Chernobyl is not a place that springs to mind when choosing a scenic cycle route. Cycling guide Natalie Tulyulyuk is hoping to change that, leading the first season of cycling trips to the zone.
You know, this idea is as old as I know. The exclusion zone administration wants to portray tourism in a different way. Until this year, it was only bus or car excursions. Cycling is something new and diverse.
The exclusion zone, covering 1,000 square miles, is dotted with unnerving nuclear warning notes. Tulyulyuk hopes that tourists will see the area in a new light.
This route was checked for radiation levels. We should follow the rules for visitors. For example, clothes should cover all of your body. Also, we can't deviate from the route.
The area attracts many tourists. Numbers increased significantly in 2019 thanks to popular TV series Chernobyl. In spite of a law prohibiting living in Chernobyl, some Ukrainians have moved there and are restoring abandoned houses.
I'm very happy to see guests. I wish for more and more guests.
People are forbidden from eating and drinking in the zone and are not allowed to travel in and out by themselves. Access to the area is limited to certain times. Cyclists are checked for radiation levels before they leave the zone. Kost Jimenez, NTD News.
Marine scientists and whale watchers were left marveling at an amazing moment between man and beast that unfolded on the high seas down under. Jeremy Roth has the story.
An incredible and incredibly rare sight captured off the coast of Australia. A megapod of humpback whales more than 100 strong was caught on camera surrounding a boat near Burmese, a town south of Sydney in New South Wales. A tour company was leading a training exercise when the whales appeared, slapping their tails on the water, herding fish in a feeding frenzy. The company's owner said the migrating whales he's seen this year have been feeding a lot more, possibly due to a shortage of food, a problem he and other marine scientists blame on overfishing in Antarctica. He also said such a rare mass megapod of humpbacks has only ever been seen once before in the country's waters.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.